Hello, welcome. So I'll get your names down. Today we are going over A Tale of Two Republics. Okay, do a little bit of a contrast, and also, it's a temptation to do, and that is try to find linear lines in history when it comes to causation. So try to make sense of why things happened when they did and how they happened. Um, to try to contend that there was a reason all along that led to it, that it was a rational uh, conclusion of some type of domino effect. And so that's what I try to do here is I'm trying to lead up to the narrative of the next assignment, and that is when the U.S. takes the far west from Mexico. And so sadly, you oftentimes when you preface that Mexican American War, you preface it with a chapter on how the U.S. became equipped, strong enough to wrest the West from Mexico. All right, that's what we're doing right here on this one. It's not very deep. It's not very long. This section, but let me make sure all the names have all your names. So at any rate, a tale of two cities here, right? So with the United States, what you find is you find that they experienced political stability for the first 12 years of our republic, beginning in 1789. For the first 12 years, we were under Federalists, and the Federalists had a very uh, just a very definitive purpose for the country, and they were able to have their way. Of course, a person who is integral to that story is the Secretary of the Treasury, and that was Alexander Hamilton. All right, and so what does he do? He creates in this narrative uh, an economic powerhouse in the United States that is going to be equipped to sadly take the far west from Mexico. All right. And so when you get into some of his policies, you might be familiar with it with basic U.S. history. Um, he had the national government take over the state's debts. He issued bond certificates, right? So you lend money to the government, and the government pays you back plus interest. He had a huge bond certificate drive, not only nationally but even internationally. And and then he also created a U.S. bank that was part, kind of like the Federal Reserve. Another one later on that we have still. It's partly technically private and partly government controlled, right? So in doing that, he wants to facilitate the United States access to credit, and he wants the United States to build infrastructure, and he wants the United States to diversify economically. All right, so he gets the wealthy in with him through the bond certificate drives, who purchase the bond certificates, and he get them. They know the money is owed them plus interest, and he deliberately takes his time in paying them back. And he also institutes taxes, which is very ironic, right, from the executive uh, department, because we we reiterated time and again in the War for Independence that it should be taxation by consent, by permission, from our elected reps in the legislature, not in the executive, because he wasn't elected, right? He was handpicked by the president and his cabinet. So at any rate, he had import and export taxes. He had what he called sin taxes on whiskey, etc. And so at any rate, then he begins subsidizing certain industries to try to again to diversify, right? And so that I remember as late as the 1990s, the Clinton administration agreeing to subsidize work in software, here in San Jose, etc., because we were trying to gain an edge nationally with software, with technology. And so the government tries to incentivize the people to open up certain industries, etc. So that's what they do. And subsidizing, they can give them bond certificates. They can outright give them money. They can meet them halfway with their overhead of what they have to pay for. And so an example of that also was found in infrastructure with the Cumberland Road. The Cumberland Road was the first nationally subsidized road going through several states. And so he wanted to, markets he wanted to attach the place of production and the workers to the markets, etc., to build commerce, right, throughout the country. And he got a lot of help from the states. In the 18 teens and 1820s, a lot of states, especially in the North, began to use bond drives to raise money for public works in the form of toll roads and known as turnpikes, and also canals. And that greatly diminished the amount of time it took to go from Boston to New York City. And in truncating the time, you're also going to diminish the cost of transportation. And so hence you could have a more competitive lower price you could set on your products. So it's supposed to be a win-win situation by developing infrastructure. And then, like I said, with the national bank, you have access to credit. And if you are engaging in some kind of new industry, you could be subsidized by the federal or your state government. The southern states didn't go along nearly as well with this because there was a lot more libertarian sentiment in the South, like government, don't tread on me, don't take any money out of my pockets and taxes, etc. But so there is kind of a dichotomy between North and South, but especially in the North, at least, these economic changes were quite rapid and quite impressive, supposedly. And then also we had a gentleman with the last name of Marshall, James Marshall, as a Supreme Court Chief Justice, and he was behind a few big cases, decisions to create a business-friendly environment here in the U.S. So if you had capital, you had money to play with, and you were maybe an international businessman, he tried to make the United States tantalizing, tempting for you to come and feel that your investment in the country was safe. Okay, so for one, right, you see as an example, where is it that Fletcher versus Peck in 1810, that business contracts are inviolable. So hence, even if there is fraud involved in the transaction and the other party is unaware of it, that contract is still good. So you had cases where people were selling phony brackets of land to these buyers, and the buyers were furious because they had realized that it was a sham, but they had already paid their money. And so with this decision and with the contracts being secured, they were entitled to land, to as much land as they so the government said that the states were liable to have to offer that to those who bought it. So again, it's an example of people feeling safe to invest in the U.S. Dartmouth versus Woodward, like I said here, limiting the state government's powers to interfere with your business. Gibbons versus Ogden declared Congress's power to nullify state business monopolies. Okay, so supposedly decisions like these helped create a business friendly political foundation, right? Legal foundation for economic booms to occur. All right, so you have all this going on, and let's see here. Then in addition to that, I just slightly reiterate what I demonstrated in the prior assignment in the War for Independence, is that you have arguably a very narrow ideological divide between our left and our right. Like I said, our guys to the right were not that far to the right. Alexander Hamilton, he was an abolitionist, as was John Adams, another Federalist. They wanted a Republican form of government. They didn't want a monarchy or anything like that. They wanted separation of church and state. Like I said, they were really not that conservative. And then the liberals, like Thomas Jefferson, they did not have the stomach for land redistribution to the poor or to slaves. They did not have the stomach for universal citizenship for all people within their boundaries. They didn't have the stomach for that. And so, and then, of course, a lot of the liberals were Southern libertarians, and they also supported the right of slave owners to keep their, quote, chattel property. So our left was really not that far to the left. Our right was really not that far to the right. And I think a case in point with that is when Thomas Jefferson won the election in 1800. He beat out John Adams going for a second term. And John Adams' administration, they tried to really, like I used the term last class, they used hyperbole. They used strategic, deliberate exaggeration. And they stated that, Thomas Jefferson was going to bring in a reign of terror, like when the Jacobins took control of the French Revolution and things got really bloody and really radical. They were trying to scare the people away from voting for Jefferson, saying that he would, be, so radical. But when he comes in, what does he do? That's really radical. He leaves the national bank that he disagreed with on constitutional basis. He leaves the bank alone. His Secretary of the Treasury says that there are too many loans out to too many businesses. It's involved in keeping too many things propped up in the country to just take its funds and make it go flat. That they had to keep the monster going at this point. So, you get a liberal in there that was against Hamilton's economic system to be industrialized, to be commercialized, to be urbanized, and all that. And Hamilton did nothing as far as, his rhetoric. He wanted villages of 100 to be semi-autonomous and democratically elect their own leaders. And he wanted land distributed from the Native Americans to the poor white men. He wrote ill of slavery in his notes on the state of Virginia, which is an interesting book on his thoughts as a liberal. But when he became president, he did nothing. He didn't attack. He didn't touch the issue of slavery. Matter of fact, he kept his own slaves and had an affair with one of his slaves, and tried to hide their children. He did not touch the bank in the economic system of subsidizing businesses and getting bond certificates out and all that. He kept that the same. And then he made an aggressive decision as a libertarian who wants small government, right? He buys the Louisiana Territory and doubles the area of the United States, literally. But there's nothing in Article 2 that states that the president can do such. But he did it anyway. And he said future generations will forgive him. And so at any rate, he was nowhere near the left radical that people thought he was going to be when he came into office. So hence, my point is, because the ideological divide was so narrow, there weren't any coups, there weren't any rebellions, there weren't any civil wars. Yes, you had the Whiskey Rebellion, and that could have gotten out of control. But the government sent in like a 1,300-man army and frightened them into submission, and they put an end to that real quickly. And so at any rate, you have, and then not to mention in the War of 1812, the War of 1812 against the British and the British's allies, right? Like we fought Tecumseh in the British. We fight it to a stalemate to keep the same territories as before the war, each of us. But it supposedly had a big unifying effect on the country. It not only enhanced a sense of patriotism, but with the federal government, it gave it more of a sense of urgency to create armed forces and have a standing army during time of peace. Because remember, the liberals wanted none of that. They wanted no standing army as libertarians, but they acquiesced to it. They changed at the end of the War of 1812, and they were okay with it. And then, of course, everybody kind of united against Native Americans, especially the Creek tribe fought against us with the British in the War of 1812. And there was it was called the Fort Mims massacre. And so there's all this anti-Native American sentiment. And then after that, you had the Seminole Wars in the 18 teens. And so those had a unifying effect as well on the country. And so now you have, like I said, you have Hamilton's system intact. You have the political foundation down legally through court decisions, and to make America a healthy business environment, an enticing one. And you have states cooperating, especially in the North, subsidizing infrastructure and subsidizing certain new industries in their states, etc., particularly in the North. And then you also have relative peace between the liberals and the conservatives, because again, they really weren't that different. They weren't that far apart. Okay. Then contrast that with Mexico. So you see here, right? Early political leaders of Mexico were so ideologically distant from one another that one party could seldom condone or concede to the presidency of a figure connected to the other one. In the Republic's first 33 years, 49 administrations came and went. For example, after the first elected president of the Mexican Republic, Guadalupe Victoria, served his term from 1824 to 28, the next election winner, Gomez Pedraza, was overthrown within a year. His successor, Vicente Guerrero, was then overthrown in less than a year by his vice president, Anastasio Bustamante. Bustamante himself did not finish his term before he was militarily ousted and replaced by Gomez Farias, who then himself was ousted within a year by a coup generated and led by Santa Anna. So frequent transitions of power did not entail change in leadership alone, for many presidents scrapped previous constitutions and devised their own. So you had one in 1824. Then Santa Anna scrapped it and initiated another one in 1836. And then another one in 1842. All right. So I have here, moreover, historian Wasserman contends that Mexico's political leaders, jurists, and lawyers failed to either overtly scrap Spanish business laws or replace them. And this created widespread uncertainty about the rules of business. Consequently, this tumultuous country of ever-changing laws did not attract would-be entrepreneurs. Add to this poor access to credit, right, or loans to start businesses, no regionally or nationally subsidized transportation projects, as in the U.S., little soil amenable to cash crop farming, unlike in the U.S., and a population that grew very slowly, unlike in the U.S. And it comes to little surprise that the early Republic of Mexico did not develop an array of industries nor connect her regions in commerce or trade. All right. So you see what I'm doing here is I'm just I'm setting the stage for the takeover and contending that because of those factors, right? Some of them by choice, some of them not by choice. Because of those factors, the U.S. is going to grow into a monster, and Mexico is going to be vulnerable, very divided and vulnerable. All right. So again, you don't have a Hamiltonian system of the federal government subsidizing new industries to develop. You don't have a federal bank yet in Mexico that offers the loans out to would-be businessmen, etc. You don't have large public works programs using transportation to connect region to region and market to market, etc., as in the U.S. You don't have a jurisdictional legal foundation that says to entrepreneurs, Mexico is a safe business investment country, right? You don't have that here, at least not yet in Mexico. And then you have the fact that in Mexico, they were quite estranged. There was quite a gulf between the liberals and the conservatives. Look at it, Agustin de Iturbide. He named himself Agustin el Primero, right? Augustine the First, as an emperor over Mexico, with the state established Catholic Church and pretty much a landed nobility. I mean, like old school Ancien regime, like before the Enlightenment and before the French Revolution type stuff, right? Old school stuff. That's way further to the right than Hamilton and any of the guys on the right in America, in the US. And then to the left, you had them for an end to slavery, an end to Native American tribute, universal citizenship. Sorry, ladies, but at least for all men. Democratic government, etc. So again, in Mexico, they were further to the left than our leftist guys like Jefferson. Jefferson is seen as an enigma, as a puzzle, because when you look in the notes on the state of Virginia, he sounds so liberal. He sounds so to the left for radical change in that book. And he does virtually none of it when he becomes president. All right. So for all those reasons, the United States stays stable, begins to grow economically, and grow geographically. And Mexico, not so much. As you see there's a lot of political instability. After the first Republic president, there was hardly anybody all the way up through the Mexican-American War who even finished his term in office without there being a coup, a takeover. All right, so does anybody have any comments or questions? Writing down Derek's name. All right, so I have all your names. But did I make that amply clear as far as what I'm trying to convey here? Can I get feedback from anybody?
Yes, Professor. I've been understanding the material pretty well here.
Good. Good. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you, Victor. All right. So yeah, so that's what I did here. Like I said, it's nothing intellectually deep. If I were more intelligent, I could have thought of a more clever thesis, but it's just tempting to play this narrative, right? Because we know what's coming, what the US is going to do to Mexico, and how Mexico is going to be wronged. And so we're setting it up with this number as far as the US having the means to be able to, having the might to be able to become the bully. All right. And then the timing is kind of perfect for the next one. Next Monday, I think literally is the first day of the next assignment. So I hope you don't mind. I'm gonna just do this assignment and be short today, and wait for the next one, because oftentimes I've done two in one day. But if you don't mind, I'm gonna save the other one for next Monday. It'll like literally be the first day that you have among 5 or 6 days to do it. I hope that's okay with you guys. All right. So are there any questions? Anything you'd like to address before we say goodbye? Tatiana, are you okay?
Yeah, I'm good.
Good,
Sorry.
good. It's okay. Good.
I'm still getting used to the Zoom.
I hear you. I hear you.
I think it's definitely easier though when it's like you get to hear it and then like read it too before you do your writing.
I hope so. That I really hope so. That's my plan.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. All right. Well, I feel badly, you guys, but I'm kind of finished already in 26 minutes. If that's okay with you. All right. So you guys take care, okay? And I look forward to seeing you on Monday, and where we'll cover the juicy topic of the Mexican American War and the taking of the Far West. Okay. All right. Thank you guys. I have all your names down. You'll all get extra credit.